So, please warmly welcome Ching.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Do you guys prefer microphone, or is it okay if I project, or can you hear me in the back? You can? Use the mic? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I'm not that good with microphones, so I'll do my best. I do a lot of talking. I'm Portuguese, so if I move my hands a lot or anything like that, and it goes away, please let me know to repeat myself. I will do my best to keep it next to my face. Again, I apologize for my Portuguese ways. Aloha, my name is Donald Carrera Ching. I teach at Leeward Community College and at HPU downtown. And I'm going to be talking today about Pidgin in the classroom, especially in the college classroom at the composition level, so English 100 level, at a level where kind of the typical response to Pidgin is you shouldn't write it, basically. First day of the semester for a lot of folks is always a little hectic, and there's the common kind of approach to it. You should always start with an icebreaker, introductions. And I always ask students at the beginning of every semester 3 questions. Your name, what are you interested in, or a fun fact about yourself, and what do you want to learn about English? What do you want to learn about writing? And so I usually start with myself and say my name's Donald Carrera Ching. I'm a fiction and short story writer. And I always like to include something to make them understand I'm on their level as well. I let them know I was public school raised. I went to E Elementary, then to King, then to Castle, and then to WCC, and then on from there to UH Manoa. Born and raised in Kahaluu, still live in Kahaluu. Will never leave Kahaluu. And so after we do that, and I always tell them what I want to learn is ways to kind of make them succeed individually. Their strengths, their areas of concern, their areas of improvement, and how to help them grow as individual writers. And so then we go around the room, and they introduce themselves, they tell me something fun, and then they tell me what they want to learn. And which of those questions do you think is the most difficult for them? Of the 3. Yeah, what they want to learn. And for a lot of students, it's because they don't really know what to say. They can't compose or synthesize their grammatical areas of weakness or whatever it may be. But for a lot of students, what they do say, they'll say something like, oh, I don't know. I'm not good at English, or my English no good. And that's because a lot of students, especially at Leeward, where I'm primarily based, they've come through the developmental English program, like English 8, English 21, English 22, and it takes them several years to make it to English 100. And so they kind of come to my class with this fixed mindset. And fixed mindset is a concept, it's a term that's defined by several psychologists. They're right there on the bottom of your handout. And it basically is the idea that you're either good at something or you're not good at something. You're either born a writer or you're not a writer. And essentially that mindset kind of impedes your ability to grow, your ability to change and be able to develop. And that's a problem. That's a problem because writing is a process and a discipline, and that, as all of you probably know, nobody is born a good writer. There's no such thing as that. You might have more experience, you might be a better reader, you might have had, perhaps, I don't know, better teachers, but nobody is ever a good writer. And even when you are a good writer, as most writers will tell you, that first draft you come up with, the first thing you write, it's crap. It's just kind of how it goes. But to get students to see that, to get them to have this growth mindset, this idea that with practice, with patience, with discipline, you can grow as a writer, you can change, you can develop. You sort of have to get them out of this mode, this fixed mindset mode. And there's a problem, because I could tell you your grammar is not good, or you're having difficulties communicating your ideas, or your focus is off, or develop this particular section of your paragraph. But for a lot of students, especially students who their response is not good at English or my English is no good, they don't see value in the ways that they communicate. They don't see value in the tools that they have, their ability to speak. And oftentimes that's because of what? Probably a lot of what you've covered today. When I was growing up in Kahaluu, my father, who went to Farrington, was born in Kalihi, raised in Kalihi, spoke very, very thick Pidgin. But when it came to us, his kids, it was chili pepper in the mouth and that's it. Right? And that's what it is. English is Pidgin is broken, Pidgin is not proper, Pidgin is not right. And it wasn't until later on, after I went to Castle, and I had one teacher, and it's only really one teacher in my entire academic career up until college, that kind of gave me an issue of Bamboo Ridge, and introduced me to authors like Daryl Lung, we heard today, or Lee Tanauchi, and started to place value on the idea that through Pidgin you could communicate ideas. Through Pidgin you have value, you have the ability to express yourselves. And so there's that question of, how do you get students to see value in their ability to communicate, especially as Pidgin speakers? And especially at the college level, when you're preparing them for English 200, you're preparing them for History 300, their academic lives and those kinds of things, where they're, even after they leave your class, are going to face the same kinds of discrimination and oppression of language that you would normally see before. That kind of internalized narrator that tells them, no, it's no good, don't do that. And so that was the question I had. How do you create value? And so I thought about that teacher I had in high school, and then my teachers later on in college. How did I understand that Pidgin had value? And the first way I sort of understood that was from what I read. And so the first assignment I do in English 100 is a personal essay. And I've always sort of, as a teaching at Leeward, it's a very CTE, it's a very kind of career-based education. There's a lot of students who are going to go into mechanics and they're going to go into career fields. And so I'm always like, do I need to include a personal essay? Why include a personal essay? And I'm always like, this is not necessary. But this essay that's on the additional reading section by M. Thomas Gamarino about class barriers, it kind of made me reevaluate that thinking again. I used to have it, and then I forgot what's really the importance to that. And really, that essay talks about how, through personal essay, students can see themselves within the world. They can be able to kind of articulate their sense of self and their value. And so I thought, okay, the personal essay. And so what I give them first is I give them Amy Tan's Mother Tongue. I don't know if you've ever read this essay. But it's about her mother and her relationship with her mother. But sort of more specifically, it's about how her mother speaks quote-unquote broken English, these kind of different varieties of English. And through sort of her reflection and her writing of this essay, she comes to realize that there is no such thing as broken English. There's no such thing as proper English. There's just the different Englishes that we use. And that each of those Englishes have value, depending on the situation. And so that's a really good sort of, for me, for someone who's teaching college, that's a good segue into rhetoric. And how everything we do, everything we say has value, but also has a use. And so we transitioned from that essay, and I love that essay for a number of reasons. For one, the response from my students, such as like this semester when we taught it. I asked them, do you think this is still relevant today, this essay that was written in 1990? And one student raises their hand, a student who says, my English is no good, and just said, it's good to hear that there's other people, that kind of have the same struggles that I do. That I've never read or encountered a lot of people who've kind of felt those things, especially at HPU, because they also read it at HPU, and I have a lot of students from like American Samoa, and so they're trying to kind of navigate these two cultures and these two identities of being here, but also being there and not being able to speak quote-unquote proper English. And so they kind of get that sense of validation to their kind of experience and their expression. And then to see it in writing also gives them that sense of validation. But what I also love is I love the other students who've never seen that, especially, like I said, at HPU, where I have a lot of students, international students or students from the mainland, who they're kind of like, oh, I never thought about it in this particular way. And so it gives a perspective that they might not see. And so I always combine it with that reading. With a discussion of fixed mindset to sort of introduce them to that idea. And I start off with Lee Tanauchi's Pidgin POV concrete poem. And a concrete poem, the way it works is that the actual construction or the way it's physically depicted on the page changes the meaning of it. And so a lot of students, I ask them, so what does this say? What does this mean? And they say, no can. I can't do it, right? And then I kind of go through it just like Lee does in his book. It's also listed as a reading, to kind of show that these two ways to look at it. And that kind of opens the idea of growth mindset, that we have this sort of sense of, no, you cannot do it because you speak Pidgin, but if you're kind of open to the idea of seeing the value in it, yes, you can. No, no, can. Yeah. And so then we go to the personal essay. And on the handout for you guys, I listed 3 essays and topic categories that I use to sort of introduce this sense of value to students. And the first is the personal essay. And so I asked them to describe an experience, a challenge that they may have faced in their lives, and to put their reader in your shoes and kind of take us through that journey for you. But where Pidgin comes into play, and what a lot of students who speak Pidgin in my class love about it, is that I always encourage them, use your different voices, use your Pidgin in this particular sense. And a lot of students narrate the entire thing in Pidgin and then do their best to put the proper English in the other sections. Or when they're in their head, use the Pidgin to show what they're thinking and those kinds of things. And then through drafts and outlining those kinds of things, I help guide them in that particular way. And so what that does, again, it shows value for them. It shows them that Pidgin is a way for them to communicate their ideas and express themselves. And also it shows them that Pidgin can be a rhetorical tool, that you can use it in academic writing to get your reader to be in your shoes, be in your head, and show that, yeah, it matters. The second example or the second essay type I use is a reflection essay. And we do this usually after the personal essay, but I ask students to think about all the different languages that they may be accustomed to in their household. Because I have a lot of students who are second language speakers. And we're all second language speakers if you speak Pidgin, because you probably speak Pidgin first and you speak English second. But second or third language speakers. And I ask them to think about, okay, the language you use in the house, how you talk to your mom, how you talk to your dad, how you talk to your friends, how you talk to your family, how you talk to me. And I want you to think about all the ways and all the differences in terms of the ways that you speak. And answer the question or reflect on the question of what do those languages say about who we are, about where we come from? How do they reflect our values, our cultural beliefs, the things that we sort of subscribe to or don't? And what I love to see in that is that students tend to feel, especially when they're talking about Pidgin or the language they speak at home when they're integrating other languages, Samoan or whatever it may be, is that they articulate that tongue, that kind of mother or that father tongue, it gives them that sense of kind of belonging or identity or community. And that being able to kind of write about it and think about it and then share it with the class through peer review or also through student samples, which I distribute as well, again, it gives them that sense of value. That again, this is something that can be studied, this is something that can be written about, this is something that they can discuss in an academic setting. It's not something that we keep at home and we don't discuss. Which is typically the response I get. I posted the flyer today on Facebook just to share it that I had it done. And the first response I got was from a family friend who said, oh, we never talked about Pidgin out in the open. We only talked about Pidgin in private. And so this is a way for them, again, to put it on the page and to get them to think about it as an academic subject. And then the third essay choice I do after we go from personal essay to reflection, and there's a clear connection between those two things, is I get them to do an explanatory essay, which is an easy essay. It's an essay type you're used to because we all have to explain concepts and things to everybody in our everyday lives. And so I continue this by going into an explanation of a concept related to language. Pidgin, Creole, code switching. Students love code switching because that follows the idea of the different languages and the rhetoric we use in different situations. The idea that our language are codes that we use to communicate different things, and that we switch between our codes in everyday life because that's just how it goes depending on the situation that we're in. And so through that, and students of course it's a little bit more open than that. So if you don't want to study that, you don't necessarily have to for that particular essay. But again, what's nice about it is that for those students who again have my English is no good, or even the students who feel like Pidgin is bad from that kind of outside Western perspective, they get to see the value. I give them readings about code switching. I give them readings about Pidgin, readings in Pidgin. And all of a sudden their minds slowly kind of begin to change. And again, they see the value in the work that's being produced. And sort of after that, that's when I start to move towards position papers and argumentative essays and integration of sources. And we still might focus on concepts related to Pidgin. But essentially at that point, with most students anyway, they've moved from a fixed mindset to an understanding that, okay, I do have value, I can express myself, and now I just need to work on kind of using those tools in the most effective way. Structure or focusing on purpose or those kinds of things. But it's really only until they kind of get past that challenge of seeing the value in their own lives and their own ways that they communicate, that you can sort of move towards growth mindset and get them to start focusing on, okay, overcoming these challenges, being able to develop their abilities, and being able to see, again, the value in what they are trying to do. Yeah. 5 minutes, yeah? Okay, so I intentionally set it about 5 minutes, and I apologize if I talked very quickly. I try to slow down. I'm coming off of two classes, so I'm kind of like in teachery mode. Is there any questions? I figured I'd leave 5 minutes for questions or things you'd like to discuss. Yes?
When you were at King, 7th and 8th.
You're at King, were you not?
Yeah.
Yes. You were one of the principals, the vice principal?
No, just an English teacher.
Oh, yes, okay.
Worst time.
I think you might have been one of my English teachers, maybe.
I'm very proud of you guys. How do you see getting the attention of a 7th, 8th boy or girl for that matter?
How to get their attention?
Yeah.
Give them something that's relevant to them. Give them subject matter that is relevant, that they can see themselves in. And I think, you're gonna have a diverse population of students. You're never gonna be able to hit every student. But I think a variety of reading in Pidgin, reading that incorporates Pidgin into some degree, can definitely get students to see themselves in the work. And
I think that's where the DOE is right now. The DOE is learning how to answer questions in the test.
Common Core, right? Is Common Core something? Yeah. So I did. When I wrote my novel that just came out in 2015, Between Sky and Sea, which you can purchase at the book table if you want.
It's a good story. Now that I know you probably make
Part of that was I saw that it was sort of important because it deals a lot with identity and it deals with drug use, and there's a lot of kind of discussion of language and valuing of language. I thought it was important to create a student guide. So actually I wrote a student guide that was applicable to Common Core. So I did sort of look at the Common Core requirements for English and literature and how that sort of translates to how you would use a text. And I don't teach in the schools, in the public schools, but there seems to be an openness to that. That I think that, but of course it's a lot more work. They make a lot of texts that are like, this is created towards Common Core. But I think maybe you could integrate it in addition to those texts, where you look at like a Western text that's, I guess, probably more accepted in a Common Core classroom, or more commonly taught. And integrate it with something else and sort of compare the differences between the two to look at the language. And I think that would develop the analytical aspect of Common Core, where it says, can you discuss the mechanics and purpose of writing? I don't know which Common Core that is, but I know that is one of them. I was looking at it last night. But the educational guide is online and free on the Bamboo Ridge website. So if you want to take a look at sort of how I thought about Common Core and then how I maybe applied it to a creative text, I don't know, that might kind of help. That's free PDF online. But thank you, that's a good question. Oh, yes.
Did you write your sources? Were you...
My sources?
Well, so is this in a book or do I...
Oh, no, you can access everything except for Lee Panalucci's Living Kitchen. You can access all of them online. So if you just Google Amy Tan Mother Tongue, you can pull it up. Okay. If you Google M. Thomas Gamarino, you can pull it up.
Yeah, where is this one? Which book?
You gotta buy it.
Yeah, what book table outside?
It's at the book table outside.
Where's the book?
It's Living Pigeon, but that's the title of the book. That's the title of the book, yeah, that's the title. The other one, M. Thomas Gamarino, that's a PDF from academia.edu or a journal. You can just Google that and access the journal online. Mother Tongue is widely available. It's from, I believe, her series that is titled Mother Tongue, but I'm not 100% sure. And then for the discussion of, discussion of me dragging this around, for the information, if you want to learn more about growth mindset, which is something that's kind of been out in the last maybe 10 years or so, Carol Dweck, she's kind of the pioneer of that particular way of thinking and that pedagogy. You could actually look up that online. There's a lot of free resources in regards to growth mindset. But that's something that's really, really important. I encounter the fixed mindset a lot from the teachers too, not at any of the schools I taught, but sometimes I go to conferences and their perspective is, oh, I'm so tired of these students speaking in this way. They just don't speak the way that they're supposed to. And it's like, if you have that fixed mindset, you're never going to be able to reach any student. And so sometimes fixed mindset, it's not only the student side, it's on your side too. And you have to kind of think about, okay, again, how you can reach those students and get to them. Any other questions? Okay. If you want to talk to me afterwards or, discuss anything, I will be here for, a few minutes afterwards. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.